Louisiana, evacuations have been ordered in the low-lying areas of Clackamas Parish. The governor of Mississippi also urged people in low-lying areas to prepare for an evacuation.
Right, we are getting new information on evacuations, and as that comes in, we will pass it to you immediately. Right now, we want to get to our hurricane specialist, Dr. Greg Postel, with in-depth analysis. Dr. Postel, how's Isaac looking right now?
Well, thanks, Crystal. Yeah, it's holding its own, and certainly in some of the satellite imagery that we've seen in the last 6 hours or so, thunderstorms are holding themselves together, we think, fairly close to the center, perhaps not right on top, but fairly close to it, like we have the last couple of nights, but perhaps tonight even a little bit more so. So I think we'll see maybe overnight tonight the pressures come down a little bit, perhaps. We'll see what the Hurricane Center officially gives us. But as the latest advisory, as of 8 o'clock this evening, Eastern Time, the pressure was 991 millibars. It came down a couple of millibars during the afternoon. Winds are 65 miles an hour and moving west-northwest at 15 miles an hour. Keep in mind, now the center is actually now southwest of Key West, Florida, although some showers and thunderstorm activity continues to move across parts of the Keys and, of course, across southeastern Florida. But Isaac will now be moving northwest. The center will be moving northwest over the Gulf of Mexico for the remainder of its duration here. Now let's look at the official cone from the National Hurricane Center. Here's their forecast. Tomorrow morning, still a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, but then strengthening a little bit over the Gulf of Mexico, 70 miles an hour by Monday evening over the central Gulf of Mexico, and we think that the center will be somewhere within this cone. The National Hurricane Center expects there's a two-thirds likelihood that it will be within this cone. Two-thirds of the time, the center, that is, passes somewhere within this cone. Now, because it is such a big storm, the impacts will be felt considerably far distance from wherever that center happens to be on either side. Right now, we're seeing tropical storm wind gusts up to 200 miles away from the center on the northeastern side. Moving that forward, moving their official cone forward, we see that their prediction has it making landfall somewhere along the northern Gulf Coast, most likely between central Louisiana and the extreme western part of the Florida Panhandle as a Category 2 storm Wednesday afternoon. But I should keep in mind that there is still some disagreement in some of the models, and there's pretty far out in time now. There's still quite a bit of uncertainty exactly where Isaac is going to go. So residents outside of this cone need to be aware and prepared in case Isaac's track shifts a little bit in the next updates. As you see, very likely places perhaps in western Louisiana need to keep in mind that perhaps this track may move around a little bit. And of course, we can't forget what happens after Isaac moves inland. It slows down. Look, by Friday, it is still likely over the south central part of the United States, and very likely also a heavy rain, potentially flood producing storm. So here's the water vapor imagery right now. This is showing you atmospheric motions, perhaps more so than anything else. The center of circulation here, to give you some perspective, is right about there. There's Miami. Here's the Gulf Coast, the northern Gulf Coast. Isaac continues to move off in that general direction, and there is an upper-level low-pressure system, a dip in the jet stream right out here that has been introducing some dry air into Isaac in the last couple of days, brought in some dry air on the southwest side. That upper low will likely back off in the next several days and allow Isaac to move toward the northwest and be in a more favorable environment for its intensification, being a little bit further removed from the drier air. And also some of the steering currents around that may likely bring Isaac perhaps more west-northwestward, at least in the near term, rather than northwestward. So we think perhaps more the central Gulf of Mexico will be more in line to feel Isaac's impasse. And here's a forecast from the Hurricane Center of where the center of Isaac will be as it approaches landfall Wednesday afternoon. And here's an estimate of the size of the tropical storm force winds at landfall or very close to landfall. Tropical storm force winds extending outward over 200 miles from the northeast of the center. Of course, those would, the further inland you go, those would likely be felt in gusts rather than in the sustained wind. And there's a less of a extension of those tropical storm force winds on the southwest side of the storm. So there's a lot of things to sort out. Intensity overnight tonight, we'll be watching that change, and also the track. See if the cone moves a little bit. We'll have the next advisory coming from the Hurricane Center at 11 o'clock this evening. Now back to Chris and Crystal in the studio.
All right,